It's a spooky edition of the 10 on the Bet Rivers Sports Network. Happy Halloween, ladies and gentlemen. We are Greg Waddell, Doug Kazarian, Troy Mack are behind the scenes, and we will take you through every game in the Big Ten this weekend, as always, giving you our best bets along the way. But before we start, I must remind you we have two amazing promotions going on for you, starting with our Bet Rivers football squares. Players who place a qualifying same game parlay of at least $10 on eligible NFL or NCAA football games will receive one standard entry into the weekly squares game. Winning standard squares are awarded a prize of a $20 bonus bet. You can see the app and the website for more details. In addition, there's a profit boost pack every single week that you won't want to miss out on. Log into the BetRivers app or your betrivers.com account to opt into a 3-pack of college football profit boosts that includes a live boost, same game parlay boost, and a boost to use however you please. It's one of the best offers out there. You don't want to miss it. Week 10 is upon us. We have a great slate for you today, starting with Penn State on the road at Ohio State. Ohio State minus 18.5 is the number. Our total at 44. Doug, over to you.
Right. So I don't understand this game because Penn State's taking some money. Now, I do think this is going to be a low scoring game. So I could see it. It's a grinded game, and Penn State may not be just three and out automatically because they're coming off a bye. But freshman quarterback, I know the Penn State rushing attack is decent, but this is the Buckeyes defense that obviously we all know the stat now is not giving up a touchdown in the first half all season. Buckeyes, I think, show up here at the Horseshoe and look at that ATS record 6-0-1. So Penn State has taken some money. Now, I'm trying to think of the angle. I do think Penn State will be ready to play this game. I don't think they're going to come into this game thinking they're going to shock the world, but you never know. They're kids, right? Youth is wasted on the young. But I also think they're going to play hard off a bye. Ohio State matriculates up the field. They don't, despite the stud wide receivers, they don't have these big plays that we're used to seeing. Yeah, we saw a catch a couple weeks ago here and there, but for the most part, it's a lot of third down conversions, moving the sticks. And I see this game being bled out. I just don't personally, I don't see the Nittany Lions scoring much. So I don't understand why Penn State's taking some money. So I see the number being what it is. I just think that this has, I don't know, 31-6 written all over it. So I like under, I like first half, I like minus the 18.5. But obviously, you got to respect the sharp money. I just don't know what the Nittany Lions can do on offense here.
Yeah, earlier this week, the line was 20, and we both leaned Ohio State minus 20. I don't feel suspicious here. Sometimes you see line movement the other way, and it kind of pushes you off. It really hasn't for me. I'll take 18.5, the same confidence I would have taken 20. I also love the under. That is my favorite play, and it's my official play in this game. Unders have been a cash cow for Ohio State this year. 4 of the last 5 games have gone under the pregame total. Look back to 2 straight games against Penn State in the Drew Aller era. Now, obviously, Aller's not available for this game, but I believe it was 20-13 and 20-12 in the last 2 Penn State Ohio State games. I think the Penn State defense has more of the talent still intact than the Penn State offense has without Drew Aller. It's been some stinky performances from them since Franklin's been fired. But to me, Ohio State, even against the bad teams on their schedule, they're not hanging 50 points on anybody. Ohio State could score 38, even 42 points in this game. And there's a world where Penn State gets shut out, as a couple other offenses have against the Buckeyes. I like the under at 44. It's officially on my card. Let's move to game 2 here. Indiana at Maryland. The Hoosiers now up to number 2 in the country, laying 21.5 points. It's a big sign of respect on the road against Maryland. Our total at 50.5. Earlier this week, I kind of liked Maryland plus the points at first glance. I still don't know where to go with this, Doug. Can you help me get some confidence one way or the other for this game?
I don't know how much insight I'm going to offer here. I talked to some people, and they're trying to convince me on the Maryland, being able to hang around. You know that the Terps have the 16th most efficient defense in the country. And that surprised me. I was thinking over earlier in the week. Now I think Maryland's going to not muck it up, but be able to kind of hang around in this game. But the problem is Zignetti's a madman, and I think he wants style points. I think he wants to get Mendoza the Heisman Trophy. So I just can't grab the points, but I'm definitely not laying it. I think Maryland will be ready here much more than UCLA was. Kind of UCLA returned to that version we thought they were, when they fired their coach. So honestly, I'm looking at the under. I think this game might play out the same way that we saw last week that many thought who bet the under in that game. The problem is Ignati's just a madman. So I think 34-10 kind of thing. It's one of those where Maryland looks like they put up a fight. It's not a bloodbath and name your score like it was last week in Bloomington. I think this is a little bit tougher ask for the Hoosiers. And above the 21 with the hook, no desire to bet IU. But the problem is the Hoosiers might be the best team in the country.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just not ready to jump in front of this train and take the points either. So I think early in the week I thought over, but I did some digging on this defense. It's better than I thought with Maryland. So it's just a lean to the under now.
It's high praise to consider that Indiana could be the best team in the country, but it's true. It's accurate. We have to
Yeah.
start evaluating this team as if they're an Ohio State Buckeyes team. And 21.5 is a very scary number. Even if you want to back the Hoosiers, a full 3 touchdowns, more than that is just not a palatable number for me. I was leaning the over, but I totally think you have a point on the defensive side of this. Maryland's been feisty. You never get a full 60 minutes out of them, but they can string together 30 good minutes of football anytime. If they do play one good half in this game, I think it could totally change the outcome one way or the other. So pure stay away from me, thanks to Doug's analysis talking me out of adding the over to my card. Let's get Troy Macker in here. Troy, I'm curious about this total. Where does the public stand on the total for Indiana, Maryland?
Yeah, well, right now, it's pretty heavy on the over. 89% of the money and 98% of the tickets are on the over. Each of Indiana's last 7 games in November have gone over the total points line. But here's an interesting thing. It hasn't been name your score when they're on the road. Now, the Hoosiers have only played 2 road games. One was at Kinnick Stadium in Iowa, which we talk about is a very tough place to go. And the other one was at Oregon in, a top 10 matchup. So, Maryland is not, there's no home field advantage. Now, there will be a sellout in College Park. This will be the biggest game in the last few years of Maryland football. What that means, not so much. They're not good at home. But Maryland, when they've scored points at home against conference opponents, it has come in the first half. I think an interesting play here would be to take Maryland over team total in the first half. It's only 6.5, minus 150. Don't love that number, but 6.5. Maryland can score. Not a lot, but they have a good dynamic offense with a very good young quarterback. In Indiana's defense is good. And, in their last 4 or 5 games in Big Ten play, they've given up 6, 13, 20, 15, and 10. So, I don't think Maryland's going to reach 20 points, but I could see Maryland scoring a touchdown in the first half. Packed house. People are going to be ready for this game. But I think this is probably going to lean under as well because, again, Indiana is not the 56, 38, 49 point scoring machine on the road. So I think the under is a smart play there. And then, as we look at the spread, 21.5 is a big number. The public is 60% of the money's on Maryland, but 79% of the tickets are on Indiana. And 2 trends here. Underdog has covered the spread in each of Maryland's last 6 games. And most of those, they've been the underdog at home. And Maryland has covered the spread in 4 straight games. So I can see why the public is on, Maryland with the money, although, tickets, Indiana, and 21.5 is just a lot of money or a lot of points for a road team, even though, again, Maryland has lost 11 of their last 12 home games against Big Ten competition.
It's a strange team in Maryland. It really is, with the cover streak in their direction positively, the losing streak against them. You really don't know what to make of them. They can move the ball, but yeah, I'm staying away. Thank you, Troy, for the added analysis. Sounds like there could be some value on the under, despite the public going the other direction. Let's move to game 3 here. The Boilermakers at the Wolverines in Ann Arbor in the Big House. Purdue catching 21.5 points as an underdog here. There's been times this season where Barry Odom's football team has looked quite competitive. The wheels are falling off just a little bit. They have not found that elusive first win in conference play. They've got a gauntlet of a schedule coming up to end the season here. Is this a dead dog spot for the Boilermakers, Doug? What do you think?
Is the more I think about it, the more I think Michigan rolls here. And I agree with the line move. This one was gone up from about 20 to 21 and a half. Key number, extra possession, we know. You just mentioned the gauntlet schedule. And that's one thing that's a little disappointing if I like the favorite here, because I was hoping Purdue had a winnable game next week. And they don't. They play the number one team in the country in the Ohio State Buckeyes. I was hoping it was like Northwestern, although they did get smoked earlier this year, I believe 19-zip against Northwestern. So I just think that Purdue is in for a nightmare here. Nothing that they do will play into the Wolverines. I guess they could pass the ball, but I think Michigan's going to maul them. I really do. I think this is 31-3 kind of thing. The under really interests me. The problem is Michigan might put up a 50 burger themselves. And the Wolverines are fine defensively, but they're not like electric and absolutely going to pitch a shutout. They're 17th in the country, so maybe they are in terms of defensive efficiency. And their offense could run all over this Purdue defense. I think under might be a good play just because it's such a big number. I think the Boilermakers, to your point, Greg, are competent. Barry Odom has a real football team. I just think last week's loss was so demoralizing, and they were up, I believe, 10 at half. If not, they were up 10-0 in the game. They really botched the game. And I mean, they're kids, man. This is a tough sort of response, and they're walking into a lion's den here. So I like under. I like Michigan. I don't expect Purdue to do much on offense. They have some nice players here and there, but that shows itself against, I don't know, Rutgers defense and some other weak defenses. I don't know how much that's going to actually convert to points here.
It's very much an emotional handicap, and you touched on a lot of the same things I'm feeling looking at this game. But I am kind of a let's try an emotional handicap guy. I think you can find value with spots like that. For me, this Purdue team really, really, even though they are overmatched, they're not a complete football team. Barry Odom will get it together in year two. They showed up and played 60-minute games for the first 8 games of the season. That has stopped in the last 2 weeks. They've really fallen apart. I think they were gutted by, a game they again led in at home for 45 minutes and fell apart. You look at their future schedule down the stretch here: at Michigan, Ohio State, a West Coast trip to Washington, and then Kurt Signetti waiting for them in the final game of the season. I just think this is an automatic lose 4 straight, and we know we're going to lose 4 straight spot, which leads me to a get cute play, guys, here. I'm going to give out a player prop angle for this game.
Ooh.
Got a freshman receiver, Andrew Marsh, that has emerged as Bryce Underwood's favorite target. He's got 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. He had only 1 catch in non-conference play and has usually been pulling in 5-6 catches a game in conference play. To your point, Michigan can do whatever they want to Purdue. We know they can run through them. But this is also Michigan's last game. They've got a bye after this, and then they've got a gauntlet of a schedule of their own down the stretch leading up to Ohio State. Think if there's any value to be taken for the Wolverines, they want to get Bryce Underwood going through the air a little bit. They're probably going to want to experiment a little bit with their go-to receiver against a defense they know they can try some things with. Purdue secondary ranks 17th in the Big Ten. If you watch these games, just simple go routes are torching their corners game after game after game. Marsh should be a big play in this game at least once. He's been a little over 2-1 to find the end zone pretty much every single game this season. It's not available at Bet Rivers yet. It will be on Saturday, but that's my play. Andrew Marsh to find the end zone. Let's get Troy back in here. Troy, what notes can you add for us?
Yeah, this has become one of the most popular, most wagered on spread plays of the weekend. And it's not just that, it is the top 5 in spread money, top 5 in spread tickets. It's top 6 in total money. So there's a lot of volume on this game. People are very interested in the spread of Purdue, Michigan. Michigan minus 21.5 is currently backed by 91% of the spread handle. So not only is there are a lot of it on it, it's all on the Wolverines. And when you look at the other 5 teams that are in the top 5 in spread handle this weekend, none of them are backed by more than 70%. So Michigan is the strongest, heaviest spread play. The more you think about it, the more you guys talk about it, it seems like this is going to be a Michigan cover and could be pretty easy. Purdue is run out of gas. They weren't a talented team. They fought hard. But Michigan does have its flaws. But as I've mentioned time and time again, they do have some dynamicism They have the ability with big plays. Underwood can give them sparks at time. He's not super consistent, but the more you talk about it, the more I think about it. I do back the public. Only 70% of the tickets, but that's not anything to shake an eyelash at. So the interesting one here is 82% of the money's on the under, 80% of the tickets on the over. Not sure which ways this goes, because I do think Michigan covers. I do think they score lots of points, but can Purdue help the number at all? I don't know if they can, and I think that's what's going to dictate whether or not this goes over or whether or not this goes under.
All right, great notes. Thank you, as always, Troy. From one game with an opponent that may be emotionally dead to another, the Michigan State Spartans on the road at Minnesota and PJ Fleck's Golden Gophers. Minnesota with an embarrassing performance last game, to say the least. Still a team one game away from bowl eligibility. They're going to get there at some point this season. Michigan State floundering. Jonathan Smith's future in question. He has not been let go at this point, but you have to wonder if that will come at the end of the season. Michigan State only 3.5-point underdogs on the road here. The total 45.5. I will note before I throw it to you, Doug, it sounds like Michigan State may be employing two quarterbacks in this game.
Right.
You've got Childs, obviously, who has had an up and down season. He's been a little banged up. The backup Miljevic has looked pretty good in recent weeks behind that porous offensive line. So a lot of question marks both ways here. Doug, what do you like?
I know a lot of people liked Miljevic's backdoor cover in the final seconds last week against the rival. Drove the field after they gave up a late touchdown. So kind of crazy drama there. I will say that Sparty has taken some sharp money. I know for a fact, and obviously the market reflects that. It's come down from 4.5 or so. I don't think much of this Minnesota team. I've been fading them a lot down the stretch, but the problem is Sparty's lost 5 straight. And to your point with, we don't know about their coach. We don't know about their quarterback. There's not a lot to like. Now, I do think the offense can move on this Gophers defense, which I think is extremely overrated. They just got mauled at Kinnick, which I was on Iowa last week. You mentioned the bowl eligibility, PJ Fleck. I mean, they should get there. They could lose this game at home, but they do get Northwestern and they also get Wisconsin. So they should get there at some point. I just not sold that I want to be laying points with this team. Now, they did take care of Purdue, which is a similar type situation here with Michigan State. They had the wild game against Rutgers. They won. I got to respect the sharp money. So it's a pass, but I wonder if we're going to see sort of the team, respond offensively with a couple quarterbacks. I'm not a believer in that. I think under's the way to go, but the Gophers have been in enough shootouts. Yeah, I don't like this game either way. So I know I haven't had much conviction here on the show. These are just tight numbers and really a lot of question marks, and I don't feel as confidently as I did with last week's slate.
Well, it's okay, Doug, because if you're lacking conviction, I can swoop in and give you conviction, and then vice versa later in
Ooh.
the show, I hope. I'm going to take Minnesota -3 here. 3.5 is what it's at now. I actually got it at 3 yesterday. For me, the key number here is this. Minnesota ranks top 15 nationally in sacking opposing quarterbacks. That's arguably been Michigan State's biggest issue. They do not have a running game they can turn to. Really, the one thing Minnesota's defense is trustworthy at against both good and bad teams is causing some pressure. If Michigan State's going to unveil a new quarterback on the road against that, I don't expect it to bode well with respect to his back-to-back backdoor covers late when games were out of contention. I don't really put a lot of stock in Miljevic being better than Childs. And if they do go back to Childs, I mean, he just takes hits, man. And once you get him down on the ground once or twice, he's a totally different quarterback. I'm with you. I don't love Minnesota. This is certainly not an endorsement in them being a great football team. It's much more of an endorsement in the belief that Michigan State's a terrible football team. To win by more than a field goal on the just at home against a dead dog like that, I'll take the Gophers. Go back to Troy here. Troy, what can you add?
Yeah, so the spread play is a bit interesting. To Doug's point, we have seen an uptick in money. 64% of the money is on Sparty. 79% of the tickets is on Minnesota. The underdog has covered the spread in each of Michigan State's last 10 games. But the one for me is where this game is being played. It's at home. Minnesota is a different team at home. Listen, they're not a good team, but they're a very bad team on the road, and they're pretty decent at home. Certainly, they haven't played a lot of good teams. Buffalo, Northwestern State, Rutgers, Purdue is at home, but they beat Nebraska at home. They beat them convincingly by 18. Now we think, Nebraska is a bit fraudulent for being a very good team. The home team has won each of Minnesota's last 8 games. And I think this one, that is indicated by the fact that 98% of the money and 81% of the tickets are on Minnesota to win. I agree with Doug that the pass is the play on the spread because I just don't like the number. But the public is also pretty high on this being a shootout. 90% of the money and 81% of the tickets are on the over. This total has moved from 44 to 45.5. And each of Michigan State's last 8 games as an underdog have gone over the total points line. So the trends are kind of suggesting that it's going to be an over. Minnesota wins and Michigan State covers. So this could be a very close game, but I just don't know if it's going to be close because, like you said, anytime you trot out a new quarterback and you have a team that's been struggling, and Minnesota is good at home and hasn't played a lot of close games at home, I think the Gophers could win by more than 3.5, but it's very untrustworthy. But that's the case when you have 2 very untrustworthy teams.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Troy. Spoiler alert. Those are all the rest of the plays I had conviction on. Let's see if Doug has some for our final couple games here. Guide us, Mr. Kazarian, as we move to Rutgers at Illinois. Illinois minus 13.5 here. Big total, 62.5. Rutgers 3.5 to 1 plus 360 on the money line if you back them to win outright. I do wonder what emotional state the Illini are in after that heartbreaking loss to Washington, killing any hopes of a backdoor college football playoff run for them. Doug, earlier in the week, you alluded to the fact that you leaned on the Illinois side here. Do you still feel that way?
No, I think you mentioned sort of the questionable focus and sort of motivation here. I actually think Rutgers in the points here is an interest of mine, but I like the over. I think we see a lot of points in this game. This Rutgers defense is something wild, man. Guys just running wide open in the secondary. It's like reminds me of those Big 12 defenses about 10 years ago. Just dudes running wide open, just complete breakdowns on defense. So I think the Illini will just stumble into a lot of points, but I think Rutgers can move the ball as well. I don't think they're going to try to run the ball much, but I think they can sling it. I think we see some points here. Now, obviously, the over under reflects that, but I still don't think it's enough. I like the over here.
Hey, that defensive points per game on the graphic in front of you right now, 31 points allowed a game for Rutgers, 28 points allowed a game for Illinois. Neither one of these defenses has been anything to write home about this season. It's just a huge number. That's the only pause I would have at all for it. But honestly, you could set the number wherever for this game, and I would think the over has a chance. So I like that angle, Doug. I'm staying off of it, but I think that's a good play if you are going to look at that game. One more game for us on the card this week. It is the USC Trojans in the back half of the top 25 right now, number 23 team in the country, on the road in Lincoln, a night game in Lincoln at Nebraska. We have spent all season dissecting the Cornhuskers' struggles against the spread in conference play. The Trojans are minus 5.5 here on the road. Nebraska money line at home as a home dog here is plus 180. The total has stayed steady at 59 all week. This is another one we were split on earlier in the week. I kind of leaned Nebraska. Doug kind of leaned USC here. After a couple more days of thought here, Doug, where do you stand?
I mean, I understand the allure of taking the Huskers. USC leaves the state of California, goes east, and bad things happen for this Trojans team, ATS. One of these days, Lincoln Riley will figure it out. Who says it's going to be here at Memorial Stadium? I do like the fact that it's not an early body clock game, but that also means it's a night game in Lincoln, and that place will be rocking. Matt Rule got the contract extension. How much of that is, calms the bad cover percentage of all these teams with coaches rumored in the Penn State sweepstakes, if you will? I still lean USC. I think they can name their score against this Nebraska defense. I believe in Lincoln Riley's offense, but I also think the Huskers team total of about 26.5 has caught my eye. I think we see points. I don't believe in this Trojans defense, but Raiola getting sacked, yelling at his teammates also lingers in the back of my mind. One of these days, USC is going to show up on the road. My gut tells me it's this game. I think they cover here, but I do think we're going to see a lot of points. I think 40 to 30 is a final score that we could see here.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier in the week. I liked at first glance Nebraska plus the points. You talked me into the better Cornhuskers angle being the team total. I do wholeheartedly agree with you there. Ultimately, I'm going to be a little cowardly and keep both off my card for this week just because I totally see an outcome that you're talking about where it's kind of this statement game from USC. They have shown up for a couple of their big games. Think about that win over Michigan where they were just incredible. I do think it should theoretically be a team that can travel and have that same type of performance. At the same time, at some point, Matt Rule's program has to break through. Otherwise, Penn State's not going to want to hire him anymore. He's running out of time. I don't know where this game goes. I know I'm going to enjoy watching it. If I did have a play, it would be that Nebraska team total over, but it's a stay away from me. Back to Troy one last time to conclude the show here. Troy, what can you add on USC Nebraska?
What I can add is I'm confused by how people are betting on this. The last 2 days it has gone in reverse directions. You know, when we recorded earlier in the week, the money and tickets were on USC to win, and the money and tickets were on Nebraska to cover. Right now, it is flipped, where 69% of the money and 53% of the tickets are on Nebraska to win. Now, I imagine, home dogs at plus 180. That's a pretty decent price. To Doug's point, USC has not been great on the road, especially when going, east. Even though Nebraska is certainly in the middle of the Midwest, so it's not as far as going to Illinois or Ohio or Pennsylvania. Even the money on and the tickets on the over/under have flipped. Earlier in the week it was about 60% of the money and 60% of the tickets. It's now 54% of the money is on the under. 89% of the tickets are on the over. So I can't figure this one out at all. We've seen money come in on Nebraska to win, but we've seen money and tickets come in on USC to cover. That doesn't make any sense. So I think this game could, if they played this game 10 times on Saturday, I think it could end up with 10 different results. I think this will be the best game in the Big Ten schedule, unless Maryland can hang around with Indiana for a while. But this will be the game of the weekend for the Big Ten. But I have no idea what's going to happen. And the betting trends and the betting numbers indicate that the public isn't really confident in what's going to happen either.
It's so true on if they played it 10 times, we could see 10 different outcomes. I think that's a great point to make, Troy. So thank you as always. Great contributions to this program. Let's get to our best bets to end the show. We threw out a lot of different angles this week. Feels like Doug and I kind of split assignments on this one. I'll take the first half. You take the second half. What's your best bet for the week, Doug?
I was afraid you're going to ask me that. I'm torn between two plays. The under in the Indiana Maryland game. I've come full, I guess 180 technically on this one. I'm going to go with Michigan. It's a bad number. Maybe the number comes back to 21 at Bet Rivers. Hopefully that's the case. But I do think the Wolverines maul the Boilermakers. I think we're going to see Boiler down here. I don't think it's going much fight we're going to see. Barry Odom's done wonders, turning this program around in terms of competency and just to the eye test and the optics. But I think this is a tough ask. Last week really took a lot out of them, and they're walking into the big house and should just get dominated. So, their offense has shown flashes, but I just think the offense has shown flashes in certain instances that I don't think match what we're going to see here. Night game at the big house. Purdue has gone on the road and gotten smoked like they did against Notre Dame. I was surprised how much offense they put up against the Fighting Irish in South Bend, but that was before Notre Dame sort of figured out their defense. Then they go to Northwestern and get blanked. They did put up a fight against Minnesota. I was really impressed there, but again, you know how I feel about the Gophers. So I think they're going to get absolutely destroyed here.
I think it's the right read by you. And I think if there was one play that I am not on this week that I might talk myself into last second, it might be the Wolverines. I'm going to go all the way back to the first game we discussed today for my best bet this week, and it is the Penn State Ohio State under. I just think it's been a cash cow. I think Ohio State's defense is historically elite. I think we suspected that for the first time about a month ago. And I think we're finally getting the recognition, maybe at a national level, that that defense deserves. But for me, this number is still too high. I mean, you really have to have some reasons to buy your offensive scheme or firepower personnel to think you can go to Columbus and score more than a touchdown max. This Penn State team doesn't have that. If they had Drew Aller, maybe, but we even saw with a healthy quarterback, Penn State be under 2 touchdowns in the last 2 years with their quarterback. I think they could get shut out. Ohio State, as good as they are defensively, when they're up 30, they have been very conservative late in games. It's why 4 of their last 5 games have gone under the total. I think it's the exact same game script again, and Penn State won't provide any value to that total. So give me the under for Penn State, Ohio State. Give Doug the Wolverines to cover in the big house. I'm kind of looking at the Big Ten as we conclude the show today, Doug. There's quite a few matchups we thought would be a lot more interesting at this point in the season than they are. A couple dead dogs, but when you have dead dogs and you can sniff them out successfully, sometimes you can make the weekends interesting by winning some bets along the way. Hopefully, we have helped you do that this week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching the show. As always, we do this twice a week, every single week on College Sports Rush with the Bet Rivers Sports Network. Reminder, you can also watch Sports Better's Paradise with Jimmy Ott every single week. Make sure you take advantage of those college football profit boosts and our Squares game, 2 of the best offers you can find. For Doug, for Troy, for our entire team behind the scenes, thank you for watching. Good luck this weekend.